are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show, as well as, I think that's basically it, at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And their support is never expected but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. There are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. You can sign up for the Patreon feed for as little as $1 a month. And you can also check out the merchandise store and get all kinds of shirts and some other items there with designs made by friends of the show. And then also you can make one-time donations through PayPal. And please follow friends of the show. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who co-hosts the show on Saturdays whenever she's able to join me, and has her own channel. And also Ricky of the Anything Is Possible podcast, who does a paranormal-themed show or stream on Sundays that I usually co-host. And also Michael Strange, host of Troubled Minds Radio, which I often sit in on and co-host there as well. And the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows, as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. So, thank you all for being here and listening in, however you're listening, wherever you're listening. And let me get to these true stories here. And that Michael Strange guy, he's okay. He's not too bad. Anyway, just reading the chat, responding to the chat there as I'm recording this. But this first one here, let's see if I can fit it on the same. There we go. At least as well as I can. Nope, guess not. All right. This one says, I experienced a UAP sighting. That's unidentified anomalous phenomenon. If I could talk, that'd be good. A few summers ago, and share the story openly with friends and family, but wanted to drop it here in case others have seen something similar. About 3 years ago, late summer, a friend and I made a drive to a remote river in northern Michigan to do some night fishing. We were getting into this approach to fly fishing where you cast large floating flies made to imitate mice for large brown trout, which are highly nocturnal. We had intentionally picked a dark night with a new moon. As the experience goes, the trout are more active and confident to feed during darker conditions. Anyway, that's just to contextualize why we were standing in an isolated stretch of river in National Forest land in northern Michigan after midnight. The particular area we were in was one that was a popular destination for us, but generally did not receive much attention from other anglers, as it was a small river away from any established towns and quite remote. As we were slowly wading downriver, casting our flies and trying to keep from stepping into any submerged holes or tripping over a log, my buddy, who was ahead of me, asked, "Dude, what is that?" I could hear that he sounded startled, and immediately became even more alert than I was. Walking down a dark river at night will definitely heighten your senses. We both watched as a very odd-looking aircraft appeared from above the tree line on one side of the river, flew perfectly straight across the clearing above us, and disappeared beyond the trees on the other side of the stream. Besides its appearance, it immediately struck us how it was perfectly silent, even though it seemed to be flying at an altitude lower than any normal aircraft or passenger plane. The movement was seemed strange too, almost too perfectly straight. I fish, hike, and camp all the time in some pretty remote places, and I have seen weird things from bears to wolves to strange people, but this was a new one. What we saw was a triangular shape with three large circular white lights below it at each corner of the triangle. Stranger yet were the many smaller outer lights bordering the triangle, where the light was rotating around the object in a circular, oscillating pattern. I cannot think of any aircraft that would have a need for such a signal pattern. Kind of funny. It was almost entirely too stereotypically accurate to the classic UFO images. My friend and I were both completely sober when we saw this, as we were initially focused on the fishing. We talked about it for a while afterwards. It was one of those inexplicable experiences where you know you just saw something that your mind has no prior recall for, so it felt very strange and out of place. Eventually, we more or less forgot about it, but still mention it from time to time as a weird occurrence during one of our fishing trips. If anyone else has experienced a similar sighting, please share. And that's where that one ends. Now, I've heard of course, the triangular UFO, unidentified craft and all that. I don't know if I've ever heard of the lights, and it's odd because if it was triangular, then how were the lights going around the circle, or I mean around the craft, in a circular shape? Uh, it's it's really odd. I wonder if was it triangular shaped or was it circular shaped? And it's I don't know, but yeah. And looking at the chat here, Lama Sfina says it's great when you have uh, someone with you when you see or experience something like that, like this. Yeah, definitely. So, but I'm just wondering, was it circular or was it triangular? Or kind of, I guess maybe both. Part was that, part was the other. I'm not sure. Unless it was emitting light in a circular sort of way. I'm kind of confused in that, and that doesn't mean I'm doubting the experience. I'm not sure about what uh what um what is going on there. So that's a fascinating experience, and these things happen. These kinds of sightings have been going on for decades, obviously, and it's always amazing when you can find something talking about an experience from recent years. And I do think, as far as I'm concerned, it's important to point out, as always, that this is just an unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or unidentified flying object. I'm not saying it's alien automatically, but also I'm not really saying it's not either. I have no idea. But yeah, really, really fascinating experience there. But moving on to the next one here. Let's see. So this one says, I've never really told many people this story because it still creeps me out when I think about it. But I'm curious if anyone has experienced something similar. When I was about 7, my family had one of these baby monitors that constantly broadcast sound from the room instead of activating only when there's noise. The monitor was in my newborn sister's room, and the monitor receiver usually stayed in my parents' bedroom overnight or the living room during the day or evening so they could hear it if she woke up. One night I was sitting in the living room watching TV with the volume low with my parents, and the baby monitor was sitting on the coffee table. Out of nowhere, we started hearing a woman singing distinct lullabies. At first, my dad thought it was coming from the TV program we were watching, but he muted the TV, and we realized it was coming from the monitor. It wasn't static or random noise, but it was actual, clearly legible. I'm not sure if that works with that phrase, but clearly legible singing. The weird part was that there was nothing in my sister's room that could have made that noise. She didn't have a TV, a radio. I mean, she was a newborn baby. It gave me this really eerie feeling because it sounded so clear, like someone was actually in the room and the monitor was picking it up. I remember staying in the living room while my parents went to check on her, and the singing continuing faintly through the monitor. But the closer they got to her room, the fainter it would get until it stopped completely when they entered the room. They couldn't hear anything from the room itself, the closer they got, or when they opened the door. My sister was sound asleep. If this had happened just once, I think we all could have chalked it up to monitor interference, faulty electronics, or other things like that. But this went on for almost a year. It was a common occurrence that randomly we would hear a woman singing lullabies over the baby monitor, and the same thing would happen each time where when we got to the room, nothing. On one occasion, my mom was outside working on the garden and could even hear it from outside the windows. Our house was one story, and the windows were eye level, so there was obviously no one in the room, and no faulty electronics. And when she went to check the room, as usual, nothing. We had other paranormal experiences in that house, but this is the most clear because I was old enough to experience it, and now, years later, it's one of those memories that sticks with me because it felt so unexplainable at the time, and still does. I truly believe that our house was haunted in some way, and I struggle to explain this experience. Has anyone else had a baby monitor pick up voices or music when no one else was there? And that's where that one ends. I have heard of this, but yeah, apparently, at least for those first couple. Now, I'm not sure if it was coming through the monitor for uh, when the mom was out in the garden. It didn't say that she heard it through a monitor, but so I'm just curious if that was heard through the monitor. Uh, it was, or not. Either way, just even regarding the sounds over the monitor, um, the I think it's fascinating that the sounds stopped or they faded away as the parents got to the room. That makes me think that the it wasn't just a case of cross signals or whatever, interference, all those things. Especially if there was other activity going on in and around the house. I'm just glad that, as far as what they were saying there, it doesn't seem like it was anything negative. So it uh, really is a lot going on there. But yeah, so that's a fascinating experience. Uh, so yeah, look at the chat here. Naturi says yes, there are natural explanations for it, but they do not preclude supernatural explanations. One thing that might be a piece of evidence when you experience these things is if you feel unnatural coldness anywhere in the room or your let me see, your house. In the Orthodox Church, this is one of the tells for a space that could be inhabited by a demon. Okay. Um, yeah, so I don't know. Sounds like there's a lot of activity going on there, or at least there was. I'm glad that nothing negative happened, apparently. Didn't seem like the tone of the whole thing wasn't like the person was frightened or any of them were really frightened. So that's good. I do wonder if it was just, I don't know, spirit of a previous owner that was trying to sort of help in their own way. Maybe I mean, it sounded like they said it sounded like a woman, so maybe just someone trying to help in their own way, but not wanting to be uh, intrusive. Maybe didn't even realize until after or until the family started to approach that they were being heard. But either way, that's a fascinating experience there, and makes me wonder what else was going on in the house. But yeah, I don't know. So moving on to the next one here. Let's see. This one is a lot shorter. This says, we have a house ghost. We call her Deborah. Middle-aged woman wanders the house. Maybe 1940s. I guess I mean maybe her appearance. I'm not sure. I had a migraine yesterday and was trying to nap on the couch. It got bad enough I needed meds, so I tossed off the blanket to go get them. To my surprise, the blanket came right back and tucked in around me. I was the only person awake in the house at the time. So after struggling for a minute with this blanket, was not moving. So I said, "Thank you, Deborah, but I really need to get my medication." The blanket loosened up, and I was able to leave. She's nice, really. And that's where that one ends. And that's fascinating. Uh, I don't know about that. I mean, it's kind of odd. I wonder if maybe if there was some kind of presence there, they saw that this person was sort of in a lot of pain and maybe moving around a lot and trying to get comfortable and thought they were maybe worse off than they were. I'm not sure how to feel about that. I mean, they didn't that the presence didn't hurt the person, and it's also fascinating that as soon as the person said, "Hey, I need to get up to get some medicine," the uh, the the blanket was let go. Whoever it was let go of the blanket. It's really fascinating. I wonder, again, what other experiences they've had there. Uh, so that's a fascinating one. And yeah, I don't know. That's pretty amazing because that does seem like a response. I mean, there's always a possibility it could have been a coincidence or a weird timing of things, but when it's that specific, it's always fascinating. So, uh, So so if not tonight, but sometime if you ever want to be on the show there, let us know. We can arrange that to have you on the show one night. Talk about your experience. So, or your mom's experience too. So, anyway, but so that's a fascinating one there. Let's get one more in here, as long as it's not a long one, so that's perfect. This one says, the other night I experienced something strange. My son was out with his friends, and I was talking on the phone with my friend. As the time approached for my son to be home, I heard 2 to 3 knocks on the door. I asked my friend to wait on the phone while I opened the door for my son, but there was no one outside the door. The hallway was completely dark, and my camera, didn't pick up any movement either. I live in an apartment on the 2nd floor and only have one neighbor, and my door camera takes pictures of any movement. I told my friend about it on the phone while I find my phone to see where my son was. I could see he was on his way home, and 2 minutes later he was home knocking on the door. My friend thought it was scary, and I'm still sitting here wondering what it could be. It was almost like being part of the movie The Matrix, and time was faster than my son. Has anyone experienced anything similar? And that's where that one ends. There's a certain name for similar experiences where people hear, or even in some rare cases, see people that they're expecting to come home or to come to a place, get there, and then just vanish, or the sound stops. And then sometime later, the person or people that they're waiting for actually show up. It's a name it's a word in another language, but basically it's a kind of a like I don't know, not a warning. It's not really a bad thing, but like almost like what they described there, where the sounds or the experience of the person coming home, almost like maybe even some kind of bilocation. I'm not sure, or astral projection. Sort of the person maybe thinking that they're going to be arriving soon, and that somehow creating the phenomenon of the sounds or the appearance of them showing up, and then before they actually do, and then they show up. So it's something that I've heard about, and I'll have to look up the name for it sometime. But maybe even do a show on it with Jen on one Saturday, because it's a thing. I just can't remember the name of it now, how to say it. But so that is fascinating, and I wonder if that was, again, sort of time being weird, and or for whatever reason that time in particular, it was the sound of this person's son coming home happening before it happened. It could even be a time anomaly of a sort. In other words, the sound of the knocking on the door, the son actually knocking on the door, was somehow perceived in the past before it happened. And then, of course, when the son got there, the sound happened in real time. I wonder if that's a possibility as well. But anyway, that is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for being here, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.